And good morning to you all. Hope you all can hear me okay. I think everything is working according to plan. So I'm happy to say that technology gods are smiling on me today. It's hasn't been totally the case this week. I've had several technological snafus, as they say. Anyway, welcome everyone. Welcome to Satsang. Welcome to your weekly dose of self-inquiry. And hopefully, this isn't something you just do on Sundays. This isn't church. You don't have to make up a showing and make your donation. Satsang is really our lives. You know, your life is your guru. It's really that simple. And we should remember that as we're tempted, even hypnotized into struggling with life. And you know, even when you've become rarefied, right? A certain spiritual mentality has been attained, a sattvic state. They would refer to it as, which is the highest state one can attain and still have a very subtle personal sense of identity. So becoming aware of that, right? Becoming aware of, being willing to offer up even the most subtle of that sense of identity. And you can sense it just because if there's some discontent, if there's something that you take issue with, if there's something that where not getting your preference causes some kind of distress, recognize that is the personal sense of identity that you are still clinging to. And it might even be, when am I going to fully wake up? When is the other shoe finally going to drop? Right? To see those two, right, are just that subtle sense of identity. Because if that wasn't there, what other shoe would there to drop? What else would there be? The sense of being a separate self. And it's really that subtle. We see it as it gets manifested in things, but it really is that subtle. It is what you think you are, is whatever remains of the I. When you say I am, whatever remains, almost inaudible, almost not, you can't sense it at all, right, will be so closely identified. You'll be so closely identified with it that you'll be looking for it and not realizing that the one looking for it is it. It is the Ramana would tell the story of the police department that hired a man to catch a thief, not realizing that he was the thief. How well is he going to? How successful is he going to be in finding himself? And it's kind of the last step along the way. And as I said, it's very, very, very subtle. This wasn't exactly what I was going to talk about, but I'll get to those questions in a minute, because it's really been on my mind a lot of late, to thinking about the subtle ways in which we still identify with that separate sense of self. And there's a lot of people I know who have developed just that high degree of sensitivity, that high degree of that rarefied attitude, develop of patience and equanimity and compassion and just sweetness of being, and have felt the freedom from a great deal of suffering, to the point where there may not be any real suffering to speak of. And there may not be any triggers or reactions when something, pops up from the past, or some button gets pushed that hadn't been pushed before, and you see the reaction. But there's no going along with it. It's a very refined state of mind. and one that's probably the necessity, the step along the way. It's the one that the various forms of Tibetan Buddhism seek to cultivate, the cultivating of compassion, and selflessness and service. It's karma yoga, it's seva yoga, it's bhakti yoga, it's the path of devotion. All of these create a very rarefied, a very nuanced, a very subtle being. Right? Now, if that were universal, we'd be living in a very different world, for sure. Right? But it's not the last step. That isn't the final shoe. Even that, even the one who is enjoying that, the one who has attained that, right, has to be seen as a very subtle vibration of that separate sense of self. There's still a self and other, even though we even know that there isn't. Right? And all I can say is, look closely at the one who is looking. And notice that the one who is looking is a subtle vibration that is perceivable. Remember, it's a very subtle thing, a very subtle impulse to want to be someone. It is the essence of birth and death. It is the essence of one lifetime after another. It is the subtlest of all of the impulse, of all of the desires. The desire to be someone. In its gross form, it becomes the ego. I want to be somebody. And you may want to be somebody important. And some of us attain that and may want to be somebody who's a celebrity. What it is at its root is it wants to be somebody that's recognized by somebody else in some form. And that doesn't even have to be somebody great, by the way. You know, somebody can identify with being the victim, right? Because it's an identification that has worked in their life, right? Being less than, being not enough. It can settle in as an identity because it's better, as far as that false sense of identity is concerned, it's better to be somebody that's not very good than to be nobody at all. The mere idea of being nobody at all is frightening to the mind. And it should be. Because it's I'm nothing, I'm no one. I spent all my life trying to be somebody. What do you mean I'm nobody? And of course, it's terribly misunderstood, and it's not the kind of thing I teach right out the gate. And as you probably noticed, I don't bring things like that up very often because there's a preparation that does need to take place. And that preparation gets us to the point where we can ponder what it means to be nobody and still be involved in a life where we are a flow rather than a thing, that we are not stuck in a particular identity. That's all it means. It doesn't mean you don't exist. And I've talked to people who have had teachers that's the sense they got, that I don't exist. How do I see that? How do I existence? I mean, how do I do that? And of course, it's absurd, because if you didn't exist, we wouldn't be having this conversation. There would be literally nothing. Right? So the very fact that you are aware means that you do exist, which, if you ponder that enough, you'll see that awareness and existence are one and the same. You can't have one without the other, which means they're not really two. Right? But I digress, and I completely lost my track of what I was talking about. But just that subtle sense of I want to be someone is something to be probed. Is that real? Is there really somebody there who wants to be someone? Or is that just a very subtle vibration that has just arisen in consciousness, and the consciousness that is aware of it, right, is that attached to being someone? Is the sky attached to its content? And you can be sure that it's going to feel like you, even though it isn't. This actually does lead nicely into the two questions, and I posted the questions and the videos they came from in the description for today. So if anybody wanted to check out the videos or actually read the question, they came from the same person. They were in response to two different videos. They had two different questions, and I thought they were important enough to take up and talk about. One had to do with the time. Does individuality persist after death? Was the name of the video, and his question was: you mentioned towards the end that when we die, we get to a place between death and birth. What is experienced? Do we have any control there? Time wouldn't exist. To me, the closest thing I can compare it to is sleep. We wake up in a flash. Can we choose what we become next as a form? Do our actions and thoughts have an impact on the world in the next life? Really sorry, all these questions just spilled out of my head unremittingly. No need to apologize, PC 1111, whoever that might be, and maybe you're here today. There is a space between death and birth, between the death and birth, just as there's a space in between dreams. There's a space in between the waking state, where you fall into dreams and then into deep sleep. No experience is ever stable and permanent. No experience is the ultimate reality. It's always just this flashing scene appearing on the screen of consciousness. Now, one might ask, and in fact, people have, on all the videos I've done about death and the meditation I did called The Eternal Moment Between, I've gotten comments about, you can't know that. Nobody can know that. How can anybody possibly know that? And it's a great question. How can anybody know that? I once heard Stephen Fry, a fellow I really admire, a great actor, a great philosopher, a very intelligent and educated man, who said, anybody who tells you they know what happens after death is either a fool or a liar. Well, I don't know which one I am. I'm not a liar, so I must be a fool. How do you know? How does anybody know? Right? I haven't had a near-death experience, and even a near-death experience isn't going to tell you the same thing. If I walk into a cave and I've got a rope tied around me so I can get back out again, I'm not going to experience the cave in the same way as if I'm in and that's it. There's no way back. The experience is definitely going to be different, but it gives us hints. It gives us some hints, and there's a lot of similarities between it. That there's something to be said for that, right? Then the other source of information for these kinds of things, the primary source of information in near-death experiences, it's not over, right? It's not over yet. There's also the Tibetan Book of the Dead, which is an in-depth discussion about it, as it's seen from the point of view of Tibetan Buddhism. There's been writings and talks about it from sages and saints from time immemorial. But again, that's secondhand information that's useful as a pointer. But how does one come to a conclusion about it? How can one say that without having died, right? Or even had a near-death experience, right? How can one say that? Well, I'm going back to the experience I'm actually having right now in any given moment. And that experience tells me all that I need. Because from moment to moment is like a birth and a death, right? The scene in front of me is constantly changing. This flash of now is now gone, and the next one hasn't arrived, and I don't really know what that next one is going to be. I hope it's similar to this one, so I don't feel all discombobulated, but I don't actually really. I don't know what's going to come. All I know is what's happening right now, and what I'm looking at is this constant churning, this constant flux, this constant change taking place. And I can quite literally say that, that past moment it's dead. It's passed away. I can never regain it. Right? I have a memory of it, but the memory of it is always in the now, and it's always quite, it's not really that trustworthy. It's always getting colored by the now, especially the further away the memory gets, until it just disappears into nothingness, right? Which we would regard as past lives. So what it really means is this theme of birth and death that we think of as being the end of this particular cycle of life, this particular name and form, right? But that's just a metaphor for what's happening all the time. The 5-year-old version of me is dead. It's gone, right? Now, did he die? No, right? Or did he, right? I'm nothing like that anymore. I've been through, the 5-year-old, I've been through what, 7, 10 bodies, 9 bodies since complete overhauls since then, right? All sorts of things have changed, including my voice. It used to sound quite different, right? So if we look at it as a theme, as a metaphor, we can begin to say, well, what hasn't changed? Because all of this has changed, and all of my efforts to control it have been futile, temporary at best. I managed to hold some things together for a while, and then they eventually have fallen apart. Can I choose what my next moment's going to be? That was this question regarding the period between death and birth. Can I choose what my next life is going to be? Can you choose what your next dream is going to be? Can you choose what that next moment's actually going to contain? Well, the answer is no, not really. But what is there, right, that is stable? That's the first. And then what do I really have at my disposal to work with, knowing that there's just this constant flow, this constant flux going? Well, I'm sure all of you have seen the Star Wars movie. And the second one, The Empire Strikes Back, where Luke goes to, maybe it's the third one, Return of the Jedi, where he goes to his training with Yoda. And there's one scene where Yoda says it's time for him. He has to go into the cave. He has to go by himself into the cave. It's this dark, smelly cave. Right? Now, first off, going into the cave alone, or going into the forest alone, or going into the ocean alone has been a mythological theme, a device for forever. And it specifies going into the dark parts of ourselves. And Luke asks the question, what's in the cave? And Buddha answers, only what you bring with you. So what goes into death? The death of this moment, or the death of all of this particular cycle? The answer is only what you bring with you. And what that means is bringing with you, holding on to. As I mentioned in kind of the opening comments I was making, that unwittingly we hold on to being somebody, being a separate self. Now, that can be extremely a tight grip, right? Which, of course, will go into the next lifetime. It will keep manifesting itself, right? Because there's nothing about that particular, there's no more significance to that transition than there is a significance to the transition into puberty. The change itself does not cause these fundamental energies to be altered. Yeah, things do change, when you enter into puberty. Yeah, things change, but a lot of the stuff that we hold on to, a lot of it we let go of, but there are these very fundamental things that run through our entire life that we don't see, that we don't, and therefore do not scrutinize, that we hold on to unwittingly, which is what I was talking about in the very beginning, at the very deep sense. In each lifetime, right? If we've been truly devoted, or not even truly, it's somewhat devoted, somewhere along the line, you got the spiritual message, right? And it resonated deeply enough that lifetime after lifetime, you've been cultivating this rarefied sattvic character, right? And it has freed you from many of the things that have gone lifetime to lifetime to lifetime. Vows and deep traumas and things like that. But it keeps getting down to more and more and more fundamental stuff. So, does individuality persist after death? Was the question. Do our thoughts and actions have impact on the next life? Only what you hold on to. Right? That's it. The next birth will be made out of whatever has not yet been yielded up to the reality of your being that is deathless. Right? So the experience of life and death, right? Who's having that experience? Is the character in the movie experiencing the movie? Can the characters in a book get together and complain to the author that they don't like the ending? Where's the actual author of this? And I think if you look, you can see that there's a very personal sense that wants to control, makes the next life better, which actually will lead me into the next question as soon as I make sure I've covered this all. But what I want you to point your attention to is the birth and death is not a moment in time. It is the nature of time itself. Things are always ending and beginning, ending and beginning, ending and beginning, so fast that we don't even notice them. One of the great insights that came from the quantum theory is the fact that things just appear and disappear. They come into existence and go out of existence at that level. Things don't appear to be happening like that at this level, but in order for this level to even exist, that must be happening on that level. And there's a dimension that's even more subtle than that. So these things that are coming in and out of existence, what's noticing that they're coming in and out of existence? There must be something that is not coming in and out of existence, something that is not dying and being born again. Right? There must be. Right? And so this is where I point attention to, because that's not something you have to wait till later to experience, because you're experiencing it right now. If you realize that the flow of time is the wheel of time, is Shiva's wheel, is the cycle, the repetitive cycle of birth and death, then you watch and say, well, what's the hub around which this wheel is spinning? What is it that is aware of all of this change? Is that changing? And you can be aware of that right now, right here, because you're experiencing it. It's only our concepts that say what we're experiencing is something static, is something consistent, right? Is it? It's clear that it's not. When I'm looking at the tree I have outside, or the plants behind me, right? I'm getting, it's not a static image. I'm getting a constantly refreshed image, aren't I? Light is a wave that is traveling. If it wasn't, if I turned out the light, I'd only need, turn it on once and then turn it off, because the light's now just sitting here, right? It's a constant thing. This is what everything is. So I'm not seeing the plant. I'm seeing an image of the plant that's constantly being refreshed. Right? That's a life and death. This is the cycle. Right? Everything is a wave. Nothing is static. Nothing actually exists at all. If you want to take it to the ultimate. So look to right here and right now for the birth and death that is happening. What am I bringing into the next moment? Right? What is it that I'm holding on to that I'm not aware that I'm holding on to, that is going into the next moment, which is shaping my perception, which shapes my experience. Right? And once seen, right, can I let go of it? Right? But first, there must be the willingness to see it, to actually look vigilantly for that which is not changing. It is not subject to birth and death. And if you can find that, it means that you must be that. Because if it isn't subject to birth and death, it means it is here, now, always. Which means if you find it, it must be you. The real you, not the you think you are. That is always subject to birth and death. And it'll always be seeking better karma, a better birth, merits, right? So next lifetime, I'll have a better teacher. Next lifetime, I'll meet a Buddha or a Christ or something like that. Let me take up the next question from the video. There is no death. Again, the links are below to the two videos who want to watch them or read the question. And he says, "Hi GP, brilliant video. Thank you. As you said, if we're not attached to our own form, we will not be afraid of death. But what concerns me is, given the problems the world in the world, coming back in another form, won't those problems still exist and we suffer again? It is something I wouldn't want to go through over and over again." Well, I totally agree. I mean, nothing in the world could convince me that going through high school again is something I look forward to, right? We think of the past life and it's going to be glorious, but yeah, there's still going to be junior high and high school and broken hearts and look. Okay. Karma is simply sustained by my belief in a separate self, period. Right? So the only remedy for karma, right, is to deal with the fact that you believe yourself to be a separate self, and that karma is simply the nature of it. It is the story, the dream story of this character in the movie. And when you look at the movie and you see the character, the nature of the character and the circumstances and everything, you can predict what's going to happen to them. You can see a thread that runs throughout that character in the movie. That's karma. Now, if I know I'm not that character in the movie, then I'm completely out of karma. It has nothing to do with me. And I can just look at life as it happens and not even need to interfere with it, right? As Nisargadatta said so brilliantly, so many things he did, he said, I leave my human life to fulfill its destiny. I remain as I am. That was somebody completely free from karma. It was just happening. It was just happening on the screen. And it wasn't happening to anybody. And it wasn't happening by anybody. And the idea that there was a somebody happening it to is the only thing that perpetuated it. And once that's seen, it goes on. There's a momentum to it that goes on, but there's nothing recreating it now. The projector has basically been unplugged and it's slowing down. But what's important to recognize is that all the karma of the character on the screen is no longer you. His destiny is not your destiny. Let it fulfill its destiny. It doesn't matter. Now, the attachment to the form, which you focused in on it, and that's really it. My attachment to that person, is the only thing that sustains it. The thinking that I am going to get something, right? I'm going to be rewarded in some way. I'm going to avoid something. I'm going to earn some merits and my next life is going to be better. But that's all there is to karma, right? And the next life is simply yet another dream appearing, just like your dreams at night. One ends, another starts. One ends, another starts. Maybe there's a period of nothingness, a period of emptiness there, because there's no content, so there's no sense of time or anything. There's no sense of self there. There's just the pure experience of being. So now, let's take a look, after what I said here and in the previous question, at that space in between and this concern about given the problems of the world. Right? Well, the world you create in a dream, right? Is that going to be the world you create in the next dream? There may be some similarities, right? But it's all going to be different. Right? The big misunderstanding is that we believe ourselves to be a jiva, a soul, an individual being that's in a body. Right? And then the body dies, we leave that body, and then we come into another body in the same world. What we believe is that the world is static and real and constant, and we're the variable that goes in and out of it. But that's not your actual experience. I did do a video on this about what happened before you were born. After I did one after what happens after you die. What happens is that, like in a dream, the world appears to you. And that's your actual experience. Think about it. People told you they were here. We were here and you came in. Right? That's not what you actually experienced. You experienced yourself continuously, and a world came and went. It appeared and disappeared, appeared and disappeared, appeared and disappeared. This is illustrated in many, many of the stories in the Hindu tradition. One of Vishnu asleep on the ocean of infinite being, out of his navel is growing a lotus, and when the lotus opens, sitting on the lotus is Brahman, the creator God. And every time Brahman blinks, the universe comes into existence. Every time he blinks, the last one goes out of existence, and the new one comes into existence. Now Brahman remains the same, Vishnu remains the same, but the worlds come and go, come and go, come and go, come and go. That goes on for 1,000 years. The lotus closes, falls back into Vishnu's navel, then another lotus opens up, Brahman again, different Brahman, same Brahman, who knows? Blinking, world comes into existence, goes out of existence. A universe comes into existence, goes out of existence. What are these things trying to say to us? That there's this beings laying around somewhere, sound asleep, and there's stuff growing out of his belly button, blinking? No, it's illustrating this point, that the world is constantly being created. It's constantly coming into existence and going out of existence, like the movie you're watching, right? The screen is the image on this screen is flashing 60 times a second. Every second, it's a new screen, right? It's coming into existence, going out of existence. So the world you're looking at right now on your computer screen doesn't have a consistent existence. Right? It's only a flash. And so that world exists only in your mind. We have a concept of the world, and that concept of the world, with all of its problems and difficulties, is what we don't want to have that again, right? And so we think, okay, I die out of this one. Am I going to get this all over again? As I said, whatever you bring with you, right? Which is why the work is here and now. What is the reality of this world? Is my concept of the world the reality of the world? Knowing as we do, or as you may be beginning to grasp, that the world is not a thing in and of itself. It comes and goes. What we experience is not the objective reality. It is our concept of it. Nobody experiences the world directly on any level. Our senses report a bunch of information. That information goes through a whole bunch of filters and processes and transformations from one form into another until it arrives somewhere, right? The eye doesn't see, right? It collects light. The ear doesn't hear, it collects sound, right? The nose doesn't smell, it collects whatever that substance of odors are. They all go into this other thing which processes and adds stuff to them and eventually it comes someplace where there's this cognizance that sees that image, but that image isn't out there. I mean, this is even the neurology of it. You never see what's actually out there. You see a watered down version of it. You see a concept of it. And what's happened is that our thinking, our thought patterns have overlaid onto the direct experience an idea of what it is, and that is what we interact with. And we all have a common idea, so we manage to interact somewhat, but nobody sees the same thing. Everybody has a completely different experience of it. Nobody sees the same tree. If you recognize that, you begin to realize you stop looking to try to find what's objectively true, and you start examining the mechanism by which I've come to believe it is true. And I start looking that I'm not experiencing what's actually there. I'm experiencing my belief. And my belief is held in place by the idea I have that what I'm experiencing exists objectively, independently of me. And therefore, I'm trying to find out its actual nature. And the beauty of the non-dual inquiry is it reveals that it doesn't have a nature in and of itself. There is no objective nature. The nature that it possesses is the nature you have projected on it, which means that what you are experiencing is simply the nature of consciousness itself. And the projector can't project anything it doesn't have. All the qualities you perceive are you. All of them. You are looking at yourself. So what now is the world? Is there a world out there that you have to get away from or get to? Right? Is there anything wrong with the world or just your concept of the world? It's a hard one. I admit it, right? I look around and go, holy shit. It's like, how? But what you're looking at is you're seeing the madness of mind. You're seeing the madness of the egoic mind. That's what you're seeing. It's not, it too is not an objective reality. Right? It is the belief in an objective reality as it begins to just completely fall apart. Right? When all the points of reference just fall away, when all the rugs are being pulled out from under us, what's left? That's where it gets highly unstable, as the ego grabs for something it can hold on to. And we see that. That's what's going on with the polarization, the divisiveness, the cruelty, the stupidity, the unashamed ignorance. It is the ego that has lost the reference point. And the truth is, it's looking for another one out there. What is the truth? And it keeps looking out there. We're saying this is the truth. And you have evangelicals and fundamentalists and political idealists and all sorts of things coming, that this is the absolute truth. And we've gotten to the point where intuitively human consciousness has developed to the point where we know intuitively it's not true. And you can tell the more aggressive it gets about holding on to the more aggressive it gets, the more violent it gets, the more closed off it gets. And that's what we're seeing. So what do? You purge that from yourself. There is no objective world. And the more you see that, and the more that you look to the self, the inner truth, as the reference point, the more stable you become. And you're not just doing it for yourself. You're doing it for everyone. I'm going to let that go for now while I go and reject this guy. Block the user. Gone. I haven't had that for a while. Somebody advertising porn sites. It's a bot. There's nobody there. I get them usually on, for some reason, on the show I do on Tuesday, my podcast, my live stream. I do with Lisa. There's always one or two advertisements in German for some porn site. I don't know why. Maybe they think, oh, a lonely old guy sitting in a chair. Yeah. Well. All right. Let me. A very long time without taking any questions. Apologies if somebody's got something burning, but I'm pretty sure everything I went over at this point probably covered everything you might be experiencing. But again, I will pick up the questions just as soon as I just say hello to everyone. And let me take a sip of my now very quickly cooling mate. And call this break. Take 5, right? My musician days. 45 on, 15 off. 4 or 5 sets a night. Until disco happened. And then jobs got fewer and far between, and then became pay for play. And oh well. Okay, hello, Rosalind from Paso Robles, California. Rosalind, good vibes. Great name. Robbie in Romania. David and Elaine. Hello, hello, hello. John Watson. Oh, I owe you an answer. I'm so sorry. I will do it. I will do it, I promise. There's Rosario in Madrid. There's Sean. I'll check in too. Why not? Hello from Maple Valley, Washington. Hello, Sean. It's Mary in Niagara Falls. Egle. Hello, Egle. Good to see you, Dorothy in Denmark. Ava, my secret agent in Poland. Merck in Sweden. Can you talk about the effect fear has on the body-mind? It seems to cause us to constrict and act more egotistically, making you easier to control and manipulate when we're in survival instead of expressive mode. That's absolutely correct. And that's why politics has become about nothing but fear. They just find that's a trigger that gets people. That's why over the last 20 years, you've seen at this point, all political ads are nothing but how horrible and the other guy is and how you should be afraid of them. There's no talk of policies. Even you hear them talk, if you watch any debates, which I just can't even stomach anymore, you don't hear anybody talking about policy and what could be done and that sort of thing. It's always about all the horrible things and the bad people and using it all the time. Fear of immigrants, fear of terrorists, fear of Muslims, fear of black people or colored people. It's yes, because it is a powerful trigger in us. It is one of the most fundamental elements of the human system, and it's necessary for survival. And it worked very well, right? The thing is that that mechanism in humans, but also in all animals, is always in balance, right? So if there isn't a threat, there is no fear, right? That's when you seek for opportunity and you find a mate, you're looking for food, all the stuff that animals do. But when fear is sensed, everything goes into place, right? And of course, if you don't survive, the rest is all a moot point. So it becomes the number one thing, which marketers and advertisers, God, even so, the scarcity in marketing, right? The marketing guy wants me to put it into mine, put a timer on it. I said, well, only if there's a timer. Don't put it on there if it really isn't a countdown. I don't want imaginary scarcity. right? In order to drive someone and to make it, even though taking one of my courses would benefit to them, I can't do that. Right? It happened once, and I had them take it off. So where am I going with this? All right, yes. The fear, yes, makes you controllable, right? And it's a natural thing in us. Now, the difference is in humans is that we can be afraid. We can be afraid of things that don't actually exist. We can be afraid of the past. We can be afraid of the future, because we have evolved this capacity for imagination, for planning, for projecting, for anticipating. But because we have not really come into balance with the animal part of it, we tend to be anticipating what could go wrong. And so we live in a state of anxiety and stress for the most part. This is how we live. So we have to understand that it's a natural process that we can't get rid of. Now, as you mentioned, in the expressive mode, we can get to the point where we are always in that state of anticipating something that could go wrong. Now, remember, with animals, they're not. They don't anticipate something could go wrong, right? Or plan for the next thing that might go wrong. They don't do that. If there is no imminent danger, they are completely relaxed doing their thing, right? And they do it well because the danger isn't all the time, right? They're always on alert when they're out, foraging for food. As I mentioned, when I lived in New Mexico, there's beautiful mule deers used to come over. I'd sit on the deck and just not move because the tiniest little sound would set them off. They had huge ears, right? And all the time they're feeding and just grooming each other and drinking water. Their ears are doing this. So it's under the surface. They're not stressed. They're not, what could go wrong? What could go wrong? Are they there? Are they not? They're just doing their thing. And this very unconscious, very natural thing is going on that's scanning the horizon for danger. Same thing as in us. Right? Only we get conditioned into a state of thinking that there's always danger there. And it's unconscious, it's very low level, it's in the body. This energetic assumption that there's always danger. And so we're in a constant sense of defense, right? Of self-protection, of survival, of the survival mode. Sometimes it's very subtle. Sometimes it becomes very, very loud and takes a lot of suppression to keep it down and function in the world. But the feeling of it is what we call stress and anxiety and worry and doubt, and all of those kinds of things are there. And so knowing this, there are people who willingly trigger that, right? To get you to do what they want them to do. We just have to be aware that that's it. There's nothing you're going to be able to do about those people. So don't even try. You're not going to be able to, convince them to become benevolent and altruistic. It's not going to happen. Because they're stuck in it. That's how they've learned to deal with exactly the same thing. So what do? You have to transcend it. You have to transcend by coming to see that that 99% of what you're afraid of doesn't exist except as a thought in the mind. And this little hook that says, well, it might. I better be ready. And if you're willing to inquire into that, you can transcend it so that you can experience that feeling of not being in defensive mode. And what happens is all that energy that's checking things out suddenly becomes like the mule deers walking around just grooming each other, taking care of stuff. But for human beings, it isn't just that. It isn't just making other little mule deers and grooming and the like. For human beings, that same evolved consciousness has access to levels of creativity and making things and understanding things, right, that can't happen as long as it's in defense. The defense will be coloring it. Everything you're making is going to be to improve the defense. All the creativity is going to go towards that, and you'll even find that our most beautiful aspirations getting shut down because they're not serving that that purpose. And so the answer is always becoming clear. Becoming clear. Is this fear that I'm right now, that I'm feeling, real? Is this an echo from the past? Is this an anticipation? Is this me trying to prepare for something I can't really prepare for? And you can see how that would put you into a state where even when you are safe, you never feel safe. And this is the state most people are in, right? And it can pop up all the time because we live. This is the state of mind of the world, right? How can we avoid all the bad things happening? As if we can control. You don't even know what your next thought's going to be, let alone how can I control what the future is going to be? And so it comes to a place where we forego our need to control the future. We forego our need to control. We forego our need to always be prepared, and realize deep in your heart that I have the inner resource, just like the mule deers. They have their talents, their gifts. So if danger does happen, they avoid it. And if they can't avoid it, if the danger is beyond the reach of what their talents can avoid, they surrender to the inevitable, which, as Anthony de Mello pointed out, was the nature of enlightenment. Enlightenment is total surrender to the inevitable. So if I rely on that which is already built into me, and cultivating it, through meditation, spiritual growth, and that sort of thing. But when a situation arises, I don't have to prepare for it. Right? Something inside of me rises to meet that occasion. And if it can't, well, then I simply let go of life. I don't hold on to this particular form, right? Of course, that's the strong impulse. The impulse within the body mind complex is to hold this form together. It doesn't want to let it go. But even that will surrender. As you see that, if you've seen documentaries or in actual real life things getting caught by a predator, prey being caught by a predator. You see them struggling, and then there's a moment at which they accept the inevitable. You can see it. They simply go, they surrender into it, and everything just kind of goes quiet in them. And this is even before their damage has been done and they're actually dead. And this is the disposition to cultivate for life. That I will be prepared for everything that happens, and when I'm not, it'll be over. And then what? On to what I was talking about earlier, right? Well, what's next, right? Or how do I make the most of this moment? How do I make this moment really precious? The only thing that matters, because that's all I got. So maybe that helps you, Merck, and also dealing with the people who are trying to press those buttons. The only way you can deal with them is remove the buttons. If there's not a button there, they can't push it. The best salesman in the world can't sell you if you don't buy. And it's not up to us to try to change them. It's up to us to recognize that, oh, they triggered me. They triggered my fear. So I'm going to look at my fear now. I'm going to look at that. What is it that I'm holding on to that I think they're going to take away? Or what blessing are they claiming to give me that I think I need, that makes me dependent? And this is true freedom. So thanks, Merck. Okay, that's gone. Oh, hello, Amy. Good to see you. There's Ursula in Portugal, Barbara in Sweden, Kieran and in Alabama. Bill B, I have a question very like Merck's. I feel a sharp anxiety in my chest when I fear that someone will be disappointed in me. Friends, relatives, co-workers, customers. Of course, some people use this to control me. How do I stop? Well, first off, Forget about them and put all your attention on that feeling. Someone will be disappointed in me, right? And just start playing with that. Okay, someone will be disappointed in you. I don't care what you do. Okay. It doesn't happen on every one of my videos, but on most of my videos, there's somebody who takes issue, right? Somebody is disappointed in me. I've been in relationships with people that I disappointed them. I was a huge disappointment to mom. Oh my God. Rock and roll drummer. Oh my God. Oh my God. Life was horrible. So it is going to happen. So say, okay, I can't stop myself from disappointing others. That's a first step. I know you're not asking that question, right? But I just wanted to cover that first. Oh, I cannot keep from disappointing somebody, no matter what I do, especially if it's an important thing that I have to do. Somebody's going to be disappointed. If I have to hire somebody in my business, right, or give somebody a promotion, somebody else is not going to get the job, and somebody else is not going to get that promotion. Maybe several people aren't going to get that promotion. Where did that feeling come from of the fear of disappointing someone? What is it that's going to happen when you disappoint someone? Now, if you dive into that fear, it'll take you right back to childhood where you disappointed your parents, right? Which you inevitably did. And because of that, you felt, to some degree, could have been extreme, could have been mild, you felt shamed, you felt guilty, you felt less than, you blamed yourself, right? You took it upon yourself that there was something wrong with you. And because of that, you needed to try to be on your best behavior, because in the child's nervous system, and not necessarily the child's mind, but the child's nervous system is, I must be able to do something in order to get from them what I need. Right? There's no concept of or opening for the possibility that you're going to disappoint them anyway. It doesn't matter how hard you try, because it's not you. Right? And of course, the most difficult of all of that is when the disappointment comes from you simply being what you actually are, acting on your own true nature. Now, that's something you can't do anything about. And when that happens, and it's a disappointment to your parents, there's an existential crisis that takes place. I have to literally abandon myself and present a version of me to the world that isn't myself, in order to get my needs met. Because once again, the defense, the drive to survive, is more important to the whole energy system than the need to be myself, the need to express myself. It dominates, because if I'm dead, I don't get to express myself. So you can see that, okay, it makes sense that it's got the upper hand, right? And so that gets triggered. But the problem is that you can't not be yourself, right? But we assume that there's got to be something I can do to not disappoint them. And the more nuts your parents are, the more abusive they are, the more unconscious they are, the more they're going to reject you, because it's a projection of them. Their rejection of you is them rejecting themselves, projected onto you, because they cannot accept you the way you are. They have to force you to be something else. And so the idea of disappointing somebody and the idea of fearing literally for your life become one. To disappoint is to potentially die, to be rejected, to be cast out, right? To be banished, right? To not survive. And deep down, that's what happens. Now, over time, the intensity that's felt as a child kind of dwindles away. The sense of the personal sense of the ego self gets more solidified. So this stuff is kept under wraps. And it can just appear as just kind of a mild thing of really avoiding things so I don't disappoint, avoiding decisions I need to make because I might disappoint someone. Because you simply don't want to feel the depth of that pain anymore. Not consciously, but down here. Okay? And so that's where it is. So how do you stop it? Well, you can't just make it go away, right? You have to go turn around and go back the way you came. You have to go back down into that dark cave, that place where in you that still assumes disappointment equals death. Okay. And you go to that through the most loving and compassionate route. It simply starts with being present with the feeling. Oh my God, I'm really afraid of disappointing them. Let me feel into this. Let me just really be totally present with that. And there's various processes that I use, like EFT and inner reconciliation, to help with that, because most of us don't know how to do that. And because the suppression mechanism is so damn good that it's very sneaky the way it avoids us going in to do that. But if you turn towards yourself with the loving intent to love yourself as you are, to come in and be that loving presence for that child that it didn't get then, which is the thing it's been craving the entire time. If you become that loving presence, rather than saying, you got to get over this disappointment, right? Which is, something your parents might have said, right? You're disappointed? Why are you disappointed? This is the right thing. And even being disappointed is, you're ashamed of being disappointed, right? You judge yourself and be ashamed of judging yourself. So it becomes this, okay, I feel this disappointment, this fear. All right, I'm really going to be present with it. I'm not even going to try to stop it, right? Because that's just trying to put another lid on it. I want to understand it. I want to reclaim and re-embrace that part of me that is just shivering in terror that they might do something wrong that would upset mom and dad. And that's really what it is, right? And you'll see it reflected in other places. It can come from past lives. You'll see it reflected in your relationships with others. But when you realize that, oh, I'm afraid of it, you're not really afraid of them. And rationally, you'd look at it and go, well, I'm not really afraid that I'm going to be disappointed. It's not really going to have any impact, which means that this reaction is an echo from the past. It's reverberation. It's not this moment. This moment is only triggering a reaction inside of me that learned how to consistently react all the time to the disappointment. Let me get right to the heart of it. And that becomes the motivation, to get right to the heart of it. So you even drop the idea of how do I stop it? It's like, how do I understand this? How do I liberate within me whatever it is that feels afraid to disappoint someone? Really afraid. And can I liberate them? Can I liberate that energy from being in that position? And what happens to all that energy that's holding that line of defense? What happens when it doesn't have to do that anymore? What happens when that guard can go home and have a life? So yeah, I can't outline, just sitting here, the entire method. I've got program upon program and course upon course about how to do it. And I still work with some people, a number of people privately, and I've got the Tapas monks group for working with people just on this kind of stuff, really processing the deep traumas that have led to these persistent behaviors in adulthood but you've gotten to a level of spiritual maturity that you recognize that this is happening. Right? And at first we just, okay, how do I get rid of it? which is exactly the same thing, right? That's what the little child did. The method it chose to get rid of it is it had to suppress it. But we're doing the same thing. It is the same deal. It's original sin in the back door, right? It's love, real, unconditional love for you just as you are, warts and all. So thanks, Bill. I do hope that's a help. I do hope that's a help. Tien. Hi, GP. Recently, you don't often talk about manifestation. I see a lot of suffering because people don't get what they desire in life. I don't, because quite frankly, and I do do some things about it. I've got one very large, extensive course called Your 4 Amazing Powers of Creation. And it does go into manifestation. And I used to talk a lot about it, even did videos on it, which I've now taken them down. I talked about even more about it back in my metaphysical healing days. But I found then, and I found again, is that it actually has created more suffering than lessened it. Because the problem is that when somebody gets the idea that they can manifest a certain life, all of their attention goes into the life they want to manifest, and they stop looking at themselves, if they ever did. They stop examining who it is that wants that life, which is the real spiritual journey. Can this desire for the life, what do I think this manifestation is going to do for me? What is it going to bring me? And you have to recognize that the suffering that happens when people don't get what they want in life, the assumption is I am suffering because I didn't get it. That's the basic assumption, right? And then you may have some real a spiritual approach says, well, then, okay, I've got to get rid of desire. That desire is the cause of it. And that's not quite it either, because desire is just another function of life. The brilliance of Buddha, remember Siddhartha went seeking the answer to suffering. He did not go seeking enlightenment. He wasn't going to gurus trying to get enlightened. He was just overwhelmed by the suffering that he saw. He was suffering from the suffering that he saw, and he wanted an answer. What was this cause? What was this cause of suffering? Was this the absolute? Was this hell? Was this what we're destined to experience over and over and over again? Right? What is the actual cause of suffering? Which he brilliantly laid down. And the first thing to see is that we don't suffer because not getting what we desire in life. There is a belief that I am suffering if I don't get what I desire in life. That belief makes me suffer. The moment a desire arises, which inherently is something I do not have, right? So it starts, well, let's put it this way first. A desire arises. When a desire arises, it has no energy in and of itself. It has its own destiny. It has its own purpose. It has its own life, right? It's just something that appears in the whole energy system. Like growing hair, digesting food, growing fingernails and the like. It's just part of nature. Desires appear, don't they? Now, when a desire appears, it's always appearing within an environment. Now, this environment is the realm in which we live. And it's like I was saying before, we don't perceive the world as it is. We only walk in our concept of the world. So when a desire arises, it arises within this context, within the context of our view of the world, of how we think things are. Now, if I am living with a silent or a conscious, a very visceral sense of lack, when that desire arises, I'm going to immediately feel the sense of lack, because the desire is for something. The very fact that the desire is there, it's got a fulfillment that isn't here, right? That's the nature of that feeling, that cycle. And so something inside now receives that desire and says, This will be what I need to satisfy this sense of lack, which was there before the desire rose, by the way. Right? It may have been silent and been triggered by the arising of the desire. Right? So notice that what I'm trying to point out here is that the desire and the feeling of lack are not the same. And a desire could arise in a different environment, and there's no feeling of lack whatsoever. It would just be, oh, look, that's nice. And that happens a lot, right? You may have a desire, on little desires, right? Like a glass of water and no desire, and no water is present. Do you say, oh, I gotta have a glass of water, right? You just put it off till later. It's no big deal. It does not create a sense of lack, right? It doesn't trigger a sense of lack. So it's important to see that sense of lack, of needing something, and the desire which that lack attaches to are not the same. The desire does not cause suffering. When the sense of lack attaches itself to the desire, suffering happens. Because I now don't have something. It belongs to something out there, and now I have to get it. And now I'm on the journey, right? I am now, depending on how strong that desire is, it can take over the energy of lack that needs it, right, can take over, and all my attention is focused on it, everything I possibly can. All the effort I do, the things I learn, the skills I learn, the manifestation, visualization, all the techniques, all to try to get this, which is what? I'm trying to get a sense of relief from the feeling of lack. Now, as anyone can testify, a lot of the time, maybe most of the time, we don't get that. It doesn't happen. And after a while, you let go of it. You have to. The intensity is too much. And then another one comes up and takes the place, and they say, oh, it must be this. Oh, I had it wrong. That wasn't really what I wanted, something else, right? And there's all sorts of justification because we never look at the actual feeling of lack to see where is that coming from. Well, that's what Buddha did. He looked to where is this actually coming from. Now, the other thing that happens is we get it. And when we get it, of course, what happens? Our belief that this is going to bring me happiness or fulfillment or whatever it is fulfilled. In that moment, that the sense of lack is quenched. I don't have that anymore. And when that is gone, you feel the happiness that's been there the whole time, but was blocked. It was obscured by the sense of lack. In that moment, it's quenching, it's gone. And then we ignorantly attach that sense of happiness to the getting of the thing. And this is the cycle. Because what happens? After a while, it could be a very short while, it can be a matter of minutes, seconds, it can be months, even years. It's like that car you love so much, now it just looks old, right? The partner you love so much, now they just look old. Now they're just not interesting anymore, right? It's just another desire appears. Maybe a week later and you're selling it on eBay, the thing that you got that brought you so much satisfaction. Right? And you see that it's completely unstable. If you get that it was never the thing that brought you the happiness, that it was the temporary release from lack, you stop looking to the things, that is, you stop looking to trying to manifest the things, and you start looking to the feeling of lack that wants to manifest things. And that starts the inquiry, that starts going in. Well, okay, so it means that there's a feeling of lack here, but I've come to recognize that the feeling of happiness from getting the thing is transient. It comes and goes. I want happiness that sticks around, right? So what if the sense of lack was actually artificial? What if that was learned? And that nothing is actually going to permanently quench it. Nothing out there. What is the actual essence of that lack? Where is that coming from? Now you're on the journey. This is exactly what Buddha did. Right? He took that step inside. Say, okay, well, where is this actually coming from? And little by little, he began to dismantle that that personal sense of self, the self that felt lack, the feeling of lack itself arose, and something else arose to say, I am lacking. He started looking at that I even more deeply than the feeling of lack and trying to get rid of it. What was it that grabbed onto that? And he even said, if somebody gives you a gift, but you don't take it, where does it go? If a feeling arises, but you don't grab onto it, nothing arises to say, I'm lacking, I'm afraid, I'm concerned, I'm suffering. If there's no I there to do that, if it's just seen as a vibration arising, how long can it last? And that's why I don't teach manifestation anymore. In the course that I do, 4 Amazing Powers of Creation, I outline the entire process and how it works, and how just trying to change refocus your attention, change your beliefs, even try to change your identity will only create more of the same. It's just more karma. You have to go back to the most primary of all, which I call discrimination, that sense of truth that can discern what is true and what is not, that dismantles even the identity that wants to manifest something, because that sense of identity is inherently lacking. That's where the discontent is. It's identification as the personal self that inevitably gives rise to that sense of dissatisfaction, which is felt as lack and fear, and from there, everything, all the reaching outward to try to get something to satisfy that, completely ignorant that the cause is the sense of a personal self, and that it inherently is unstable and discontent. When you dismantle that, you find the happiness that is forever. And then manifestation happens from there, but there's nobody manifesting. It's not a conscious attempt. You're not trying to get anything. You find that the entire universe is nothing but the manifestation of the self. But it is a creation that is not an act of will. It is the spontaneous happening. It's God playing jazz. It just happens. Tian, thank you for that. Is that good? Good. Great. Jerry's. Hello. Good to see you. And Jennifer. Hello, beautiful beings. And Baba. Hello, Jennifer. Jerry's. I feel like I'm between two worlds, not fully awake yet, but I feel like there's no going back. The process has already started, and it feels weird and fun sometimes. Good. Yes, it has started. You wouldn't be here if it hadn't. Start consistently putting your attention. Say, I'm between two worlds. I'm not fully awake yet. Who's that I? Really become curious about that. You can identify yourself as the spiritual seeker, as the one who's in between worlds, right? And there's this experience happening, right? Where there's an expectation that somehow if I'm fully awake, the world's just not going to appear, and nothing's ever going to be bothering them. Nothing's ever going to arise. All traumas are whisked away in a moment, right? Is that really true? With that expectation, we'll be judging our experience against our conception of what we think being fully awake actually is. So set that aside and just be with that sense of I that feels as if something is missing, that feels as if it's in two worlds, that feels there's no going back, that says it's weird sometimes and fun sometimes. It's painful sometimes and really pleasurable sometimes. What is it that is assessing the pleasure and pain and watching it come and go? It's really that's the space from which all of this is watching. Because can't you see that the one who feels that they're in between two worlds is also something quite perceivable? It's a set of attributes. Okay, what's perceiving it? That's the simple question. which is simply another way of saying, well, who am I? Because obviously I'm the one perceiving it. Am I that which I perceive? Really feels it. I'm so used to identifying with that. I go through the day thinking I'm this person that's, oh, I'm going to get it. I'm going to get it any minute now, right? I'm so close to awakening. Buddhahood, here I come, right? First one to enlightenment wins. Who's that? Who is that? Who is that? And notice how it's a very subtle, but a very compelling sense of identity, isn't it? The spiritual seeker, which is a phase we all have to go through, right? It's not like you say there is no seeker, right? You can't do it. You can't con God. It's got to be authentic. But you begin to look at it and see, okay, I've been identified as the seeker, so I've got this sense of somebody trying to get someplace. But all of that too is also being seen. By whom is that being seen? So these are vibrations that come and go. Am I the seeker? Or has there simply been seeking going on? There's been an activity going on. It seems to be part of the spiritual progress of seeking. Right? And of course, it's a much better state to be than somebody who's completely ignoring. It wants nothing to do with it. Right? But is that yet who I am? Is that the ultimate? Is that the self, the real me? That becomes the question. So even all of the things that you're experiencing become food, right? They become food to be eaten by God, the prasad to be eaten by the divine. That is awakening more and more and more. And believe me, the one that is awakening is not stuck between two worlds. Thanks, Jerry's. Nice. A short answer for a change. Uh-oh. Connection lost. What happened? I lost my thing here. I lost my little connection. I wonder if it went dead. Because I can't actually scroll or anything right now. Okay. Now what do I do? I need to hook this up to hold on a second. I got to hook it up because my trackpad just went dead, so I can't do anything. I have to hook it up to a battery. I would assume I must have let it run down and go dead. Okay, so this is that one. There's another one. I will be back, folks. Please be patient. See, I spoke too soon about the technology gods being kind to me. They decided that I hadn't had enough self-discipline as of yet. Good thing I'm in between questions. I am what? Well, let's see if this works. Never presume upon the kindness of the technology gods. And there it is. Yes, the battery went dead. Never presume on the kindness of technology gods. So I think I covered that for you, Jerry's. Brent, thanks for being here, G. Thanks for being here, Brent. There was Peter in Italy. Roberto is in Granada. Wow, amazing. Got a great life, Roberto. Blessings to you, GP, and the rest of I. That's Francis King. Hello, Francis. Mary says, I've been getting pouring emails and some in German too. Yeah, that's, what can you say? Right. I've gotten so many spam emails on one of my emails. I'm actually going to just close it because I get almost nothing. That's actually to me anymore. So great intro, GP, says Mary. Thank you, Mary. Glenn says, yeah, handsome guy. Oops. Okay. Thanks, Glenn. I hope that was meant for me. Egle, wow, the intro is so deep, like some kind of shamanic journey. That's what the shamanic journey is. It's a journey into ourselves, and it's guided. It's guided by the shaman, guided by the spirit of the plant, right, or the trance, or whatever it happens to be. Yeah, there's always that element to it. I mean, that's all the guru or the teacher is. I'm just Yoda telling you to go into the dark cave, and we have to go into the dark cave, and that dark cave is just all the parts of us that have are disowned, and so it is kind of a shamanic journey. But, thank you, Egle. Melissa, greetings. Would you say a word about grieving the broken heart of inner child? Well, I think I kind of did, answering that other question about, can't remember who said it, but who asked it, but getting back to that part of you that's the broken heart. I call it a disconnect. You can call it a broken heart, right? It's the child is simply broken because they can't be themselves. And it happens to all of us. And, I have several students of mine who are parents of young children, and they go, how do we avoid it? How do we avoid it? Well, you can't. It's part of the journey. It's part of the spiritual path that everybody has to walk. What you can do is create such a loving environment that it doesn't turn into these deep grooves, right? That cause untold suffering. That you can do. That you can do. To be the thing that creates the traumatic material is the suppression, is shutting it all down, because it has no mode of expression. If the opening is there, and the parents are willing to be with the child's feelings, no matter what they are, then it doesn't develop into a trauma. There's always going to be, the children have to be contained, right? And they're inevitably going to interpret some of their containment as fear of being who they are. You can minimize it, but you can't get rid of it, and you don't want to, because that's the catalyst that leads to awakening. And it always starts in the same place, the yoga of allowing. You start by just honoring your feelings, because that's where they are, right? All of the broken heart of the inner child is in the feelings. And if you're with the feelings and you come at those feelings from the point of view of that perfect parent you never got, the one who gives nothing but unconditional love and acceptance, that broken heart will be healed. You'll become that that you always wanted. You'll be giving yourself the gift that you couldn't get back then. But as you're giving that gift to yourself, it's blossoming in a completely different way. It's blossoming in the side of awakening. It's no longer just giving the child some space, because you've already gone through it and are now coming back to it. This is the awakening that doesn't go back to sleep. So beautiful, Melissa. Andrew, hello, Andrew. I was a huge disappointment to my mom too. She wanted me to become a Catholic priest. Yeah, there was I'm so happy to see so many awakened parents who aren't doing that kind of shit to their kids. That really, I want to help them discover themselves, that honor who they are. And it's such a tough line to walk, because you do have to protect them from themselves, from their own exuberance for life, and do that without shutting it down, with a minimum amount of self-doubt. And that's what you have to do. It's simply what you have to do. And the shame and guilt, which was the tool of the past generation, and many in my generation, I'm afraid. My generation are the parents of many people here, even the grandparents of many people here. It was just the tool, because they expected you to be somebody. It was a cultural thing. They were afraid. They were terrified of me as a rock and roll drummer. I mean, it's just, they could not conceive of that world, right? The world of art and in itself, and the tumultuous times that was, just couldn't even conceive of it. So it all became very dangerous and scary. And this is where you had to be. And I was supposed to be a Republican lawyer who'd go on into politics and and the like. It's a classic. A doctor, a lawyer, or and now it's an engineer of some sort, right? And anyway, yeah, just being with that sense of disappointment, going back to the one to the little one, right? It's, you're not a disappointment, but you have to do that energetically. You can't just say it. I'm not a disappointment. I'm not a disappointment. You can't even say that with tapping. You have to be, you have to be genuinely present with what is here now, which is what your parents couldn't do. So really as simple as that. Simple to say, not so easy to do. Barbara, afraid people are obedient people. Isn't that very much what is used in the world nowadays? It always has been. It always has been, ever since we organized into city-states and agriculture and all of that. They realized that people were controlled through fear. That has been the, even the most benevolent of rulers has controlled through fear. You do not cross them, period. And their benevolence was a gift to you, not a right. And we absolutely do see the same thing happening now. It's all over the place. When you see it, you eradicate it from yourself so you don't react to it, and they can't control you. I actually have a video out on YouTube called "The Emperor and the Sage" that talks about this. When Alexander the Great met a genuine enlightened being after he had conquered India. Anyway, so Bill B, thank you. That does help. Yeah, you're very welcome. Great answer to Bill, says Mary. You're very welcome, Mary. Grimace, we're on the sine wave, aka sin. Everything is a wave. It is all a flow. Facebook user in Greece. Hello, Facebook user. Tian, thanks, GP. Always love your answers. Always love your questions. Thank you. Mascarenas, Saruch. How do you come out of abuse and trauma? Through a cultivated sense of genuine unconditional love. Because remember, the traumas that are created by abuse, it isn't the abuse itself. It's not the conditions themselves. It's the sense of powerlessness that doesn't die, right? You can't run and you can't hide, or you can't fight, right? You can't. That's why traumas happen so much as a child, because we're powerless. We're absolutely powerless and vulnerable. You can't run away from the ones who are creating your pain and suffering, and you can't fight them. Right? You are powerless. Dealing with that powerlessness is what creates the trauma. The alternative is we surrender to death, which we don't want to do, right? And so that sense of powerlessness suppresses the incredible fear of dying. It gets stored off in the body somewhere, and that's what a trauma is. It is a very genuine, energetic thing. It is not just a state of mind or something. Those all come later. All right, so it was, do the short answer version, since it was that sense of danger and being threatened, that you weren't safe, created the trauma, it stands to reason the only thing that will undo the trauma, release the trauma, is a state of being safe. The problem is that when these traumas get into place, an assumption of not being safe eventually emerges, and then an entire sense of identity based on that not being safe. And we get lost in the identity and seeking all the ways in which we can create circumstances in which we can be safe, which never ever work because there's an underlying assumption that we're not. Right? And every attempt at self-improvement and reaching all of it is actually confirming it. Because if I felt safe, I wouldn't be reaching for somebody to make something to make, or somebody to make me feel safe. Which means everything we do is actually a confirmation of the very source of the problem. Right? So what do you have to do? Well, you begin to learn how to create a safe space for yourself. That's the process I call inner reconciliation. It's quite extensive. I even train coaches in it. I haven't in a while, but perhaps I will again soon. And you start to become safe for yourself. And again, it starts with simply being willing to be present with your feelings as they are, without judging, and you'll notice how strong the desire to get rid of them is. I don't want to feel that. And then the idea that, oh, if I'm feeling this, then I'm not going to manifest this life, and I've got to get rid of this feeling. And you could just see all the conflict. And the more conflict there is, the more the energy system doubles down and says, look, it really isn't safe. And guess what? It isn't. Right? We have to learn how to become safe, because we are doing to ourselves exactly what was done to us in the first place that created it. That is where we can stick a stake in the ground and begin to undo it. If I can create the inner space of safety that I didn't get before, the trauma will now be able to release itself, because the nervous system is only holding it because it does not know that it's safe. And in fact, it isn't safe yet. But the moment it does become safe, even a little bit, the nervous system is not something that it is also a flow. It's not static. It's constantly measuring the environment to see if it's safe. Right? The moment it detects that it is safe, it begins to adapt to it. And if that safety is consistent, it will eventually completely conform to it and assume that that's the new state. It can't do anything on its own. It can't go away, and it can't fix itself. It is always and only responding to the environment in which it is. It is like water being poured into. It takes the shape of whatever it's in. And we are creating that space through our various beliefs and assumptions and ideas and mostly our sense of identity. So then if you can begin to recognize that, you can start on this journey that I call inner reconciliation. You're reconciling with that energy, which is why it's not self-help. It is a very practical guide to genuine self-love, and that's the only thing that ever heals anything. And I recommend the courses. They've been available for 5 years. Just check on my site. Hi, Sally in Southeast England. Jennifer says, love those techie gods. Gotta love them. Gotta love them. I guess I didn't just chant, dance, and wave the chicken enough. Egle, what a great insight about lack and desire, and how interesting it is to get an answer to a question which I wouldn't even have known how to ask. Very good. Well, we don't. Yeah, it's actually very true. We don't, because we're lost in our assumptions. And so if I've got an assumption about the nature of desire, and I'm going to be acting on that assumption, I'm going to say, oh, I've got to figure out some way to get it, right? And that, meditate, whether it's a very spiritual approach or a very, very massive action kind of approach, a success principles kind of approach, if it's a law of attraction kind of approach, or any kind of approach, or I just have to get rid of all desire, right? Which is just another approach that is actually confirming the same thing. As long as that my assumption is there, I don't look anywhere else. I'm forever trying to find the right way to do it, and all these ways don't work. Somebody's got to come along and say, guess what? You're starting from the wrong place. You're barking up the wrong tree. And if you can do that effectively, oh, wait a minute. The problem isn't the thing or the lack of the thing. The problem is the feeling of lack, which was there before the thing. Well, where did that come from? Oh, now we're getting somewhere, right? Which is the whole process. But I do have to point out that it's habitual, right? And you're constantly being bombarded that this is what, oh, you need this, you need this, you need this. You need version 10. I think we're iPhone 14 now. It's like, what? Do we really need 14? Think of what all those brilliant engineers could be doing to, help humanity and save the environment. And instead they're working on iPhone 15 and 16. It's like, please set these minds free. Anyway, enough of that. Yeah, just be aware that it's instinctive, it's reflexive, right? It's not going to go away in a heartbeat. This requires consistent effort and understanding. So, Jennifer, peck, Jennifer. Melissa, thank you. You're welcome. Jennifer, yeah, I was told stories of starving artists. LOL. My parents thankfully pushed for me to keep doing art, considered a great talent and not good at making money. I am grateful for my parents. Beautiful. Beautiful. I'm grateful for your parents too. Yes, and yeah, keep doing that which, follow your bliss, as Joseph Campbell said, and then go beyond being the artist, right? This is the important thing. I got stuck because I got so identified with, and of course they hated what I was, which, I could have either, tried to get rid of it and become the Republican lawyer. Oh God, what a disaster that would have been. I would have been the world's worst. Or I could doggedly hold on to it, which I did. I identified with it. I became the rock and roll drummer. My whole life was invested in whether I was going to be a success at that is not. And in the process, I really lost touch with the music. I lost touch with the soul, my love of what I was doing, which is where it all started in the first place. Because the identity eventually sucks all the life out of it, right? Because the beautiful gift now isn't serving itself. It's not serving life. It's not serving God or humanity or anything. It's serving this egoic identity, which constrains it, right? It isn't free to just express itself. It's got to express itself in this way. It's got to write the hit song or something, right? So sing, but don't be a singer. Paint, but don't be a painter. Sculpt, but don't be a sculptor. Dance, but don't be a dancer. Right? Jen, when fear leaves, the heart opens. And when the heart opens, fear leaves. It goes both ways. The reason I say that is because we can get the idea that, okay, as long as this fear is here, my heart isn't open. Right? It may be that can be the case, but just don't assume that. And assume instead that the heart, because it is innate in you and fear is not, that is the psychological, emotional fear that we suffer from, other than the basic physical drive to survive, is the bear chasing me or not? That's it. That's the only real fear there is. So the heart is the reality of you. So if you focus your attention there and you allow it to open, it will dispense with fear. Fear merely, the attention on the fear merely blocks access to the heart. It can't actually close it. In fact, the heart cannot be closed any more than the sun can stop shining. It can be blocked by clouds, right? There's no such thing as a closed heart. That's a myth. There's a sense of not having access to the heart energy, right? Which we do experience. And then we think, oh, my heart's closed. No, it's not, right? It's just our beliefs and our assumptions and our energy patterns have created a gap between us, a block between access to the heart, right? Now, if you recognize that which even sees that and feels that the heart is closed, or there's no access to it, is the heart. And in fact, it isn't access to the heart. It's the heart not feeling the freedom to express itself fully. And that's what you're talking about, right? And this is what happened as the child. This is the trauma of the child, that it's just expressing itself fully. It's pure. It's nothing but heart, but it can't. Things get put in place to keep that from happening. So my heart is closed. No, you are the heart that wants to express itself. And a lot of the pressure you're feeling is actually coming from the inside, right? So the heart is never closed. You're never somewhere else looking at it. You're always looking from it, but thinking that it's somewhere else. You are the heart. You are open, and realize that all of the obstacles don't really exist, because you can't be any closer to yourself than the heart. It is you. And so we imagine this. And so what we're really doing is dismantling all the beliefs and assumptions that are in the way of the reality of you, the truth of you, the true self, the heart, the God self, the I am, expressing itself fully as a human being. And we're just removing the obstacles to self-expression. You can't be any more the self than you already are. Thanks for that, Jen. That went further than I thought it was going to. David also wanted to be a rock and roll drummer. If we were all become what our parents wanted us to be, none of us would own any records or CDs. It's true. It's true. Music was my lifeline, I have to say. I mean, I got totally identified with it. I did get serious about it. I studied hard. I practiced hours and hours a day. I studied music. I went to school for it. I found the best teachers I could. But I was totally identified with it. And it was the identification that squashed it. Nothing else, right? And it was just me, just wanted anything but what they wanted me to be. So, I mean, it was the polar opposite. But it was music that changed everything. I saw the Beatles on Ed Sullivan when I was 11. It's like game over. Game over, right? Beatles, Screaming Girls, I'm in. I'm in. Melissa, how can we become emotionally regulated? May we feel peace. May we feel loved. I missed that one. I'm a rock and roll drummer. Yeah, there be no CDs or records. We all became lawyers, and what a dreadful world. Goodness. How can we become emotionally regulated? That's how. I've said it numerous times, not to be flippant or dismiss it, but this question came in a while ago. The emotions are Sensation and emotion are completely reactive. They are adaptive. They do not start anything, so they don't have to be regulated. They're always responding. That's why we think the emotions are the problem. They're not, because we are unaware of the container that they have adapted to which they are responding. And we are ignorantly, unknowingly, unwittingly creating the container and blaming the contents for the form that they're in. It's like blaming the water for being in the shape of a glass. It's not the water's problem, it's the glass. You don't like that glass, put it in a different glass. But that's the problem. The glass is clear, right? And if the glass is clear and outside of the scope of what we can see, we're going to think there's a problem with the water. It's not the water. It's not the emotions. You don't have to regulate them. You have to free them. You have to see that they have been confined within this small area. This small area is created by our beliefs, by our assumptions, by our habits, and most importantly, by our sense of identity. It is our identity that created the container. And that identity was created by the nervous system to keep you safe because it was necessary at one time, but it got stuck. That's it. And now we go, okay, so my emphasis is always on the environment. Don't worry about fixing emotions or thoughts or sensations or feelings or memories or associations. Don't worry about it. You don't have to. Put all of your attention on the inner environment you're creating. And you are creating the inner environment that is saying to the nervous system, it's not safe yet. Don't come out. And we're doing it inadvertently because we don't know it, because we keep thinking we're trying to fix it. And that fixing, of course, is part of the environment that keeps it contained. This is why I emphasize inner reconciliation so much. It's a reconciliation. You start to be present with it. You start becoming the safe space. And if you do, the adaptive mechanism will adapt. That's all it does. It doesn't make decisions. It doesn't choose anything. It just adapts, right? Right? Put the water in a glass, it becomes a glass. If it's a beautiful wine goblet, it's a beautiful wine goblet. It's an old shoe, it's an old shoe. It has no issue with what you put it in, right? And so when you say, how do I become emotionally regulated? It means you've awakened to a place that is seeing now all of this stuff, whereas usually you're so identified you didn't even see it. But there's still this residual thing that thinks somehow I've got to fix this. Take a bigger step back to see it. Oh, this is part of a larger picture that I have inadvertently been sustaining. All right, how do I dismantle that? David. Oh, I got to that one, yeah. Mascarinas. Does that course remove trauma from the root? Thanks for your help. Yes, it does. I've got a new one coming out, a really easy one, a real basic one called Healing at the Roots. Talks about the first chakra, the energy of safety, creating the new environment. It uses meridian tapping as a means of doing it. It's not aimed at the non-dual audience. It's aimed at meridian tapping, but there's this intersection between the two because I get all sorts of questions about trauma and emotional freedom and that sort of stuff. I'm in the process of making it now. The book I had it out before. I've revised the entire thing and updated it, and I'm creating a workshop to go along with it. It's going to be a whole thing we're going to be released. I'm actually going to be advertising it. It's going to be available for $7, kind of thing. And it'll probably be out in a week or two. So there will be that as well. At $7, anybody can have it. That's why I'm doing it. It's worth more, but we're doing it on purpose for that reason. I got to start selling more some stuff though, because I'm barely breaking even. But at any rate, and then the whole inner reconciliation thing is extremely in-depth at every single step along the way. And I do include EFT, I include the chakras, I include meditation, I include the whole energy system, trauma work, all the whole deal. And that's like 6 years old now. So it may be time for an update of that too. But I just don't have the bandwidth to do it. If I get maybe a couple hundred people in the Tapas monks, I can afford to take the time, because right now I can't. So at any rate, yes. I mean, this is all I do, is make courses to try to remove the trauma. And I still do private sessions as well. And I think you've taken a couple from me, if I remember correctly. Yes. Anyway, Mary says, do you believe that trauma is more than biological? I don't believe anything is just biological. The biological is one aspect, right? I mean, the strict materialist boils everything down to metabolism and biology and anatomy, right? The traumas are simply chemicals. You fall in love, it's a chemical. Consciousness is some kind of synaptic reaction in the brain. But of course, they cannot explain self-awareness, self-consciousness. You can't take a structure and make it self-aware. You keep breaking it down to at what point does self-awareness emerge. So there's this idea of emergent property, that somehow out of this magically sense of I, a self-aware being. But there's many even in the scientific camp that go, it's just not the same. And there are some in that camp who have even said, there is no biology, there is no anatomy, there is no matter, there is only consciousness. And all of these things are aspects of consciousness. So when I describe trauma, I can describe it on a variety of different levels. And the way I've done it here, the way I've done it on all my courses, is I go to the realm that has the most therapeutic potential in it. So I'm not going to go into the pure consciousness only mode, in which case, trauma is something that you are witnessing. You're not even traumatized. That wouldn't do for a whole lot of people. So we explain it on the most fundamental level. The experience of trauma is that it becomes biological. It's in the body. It's functioning as the body. But what is the body, right? Is the body anything other than just also the flow of energy? Is a trauma nothing but the flow of energy getting rerouted in a distorted way? Is that what physical illness is? I'd say yes to all of that, but that's just me. That's just the opinion of this one old guy sitting in a chair, talking on a Sunday morning. Well, now Sunday afternoon. So, Jen, 21. Ego is an overstimulated nervous system and is integrated when you're not in war. Yeah. Yes and no. I love Matt, but I don't really agree with that. I agree with the part when you're not in war, right? Because the war is with you, with your own, with the disowned parts of yourself. That's what the war is. You have a conflict with your own nature, right? That you have been taught is there's something wrong with it, right? And so there's this conflict that has to be reconciled. But the ego is a construct of that, and it doesn't require an overstimulated nervous system. It will create itself, period. It's part of the way life works. Now, egotism, or being extremely clutching to a position, right, is a result. The more threatened we feel, the more the tendency to kind of double down and hold on to something more tightly. We have to learn how to be open and non-resistant, so the ego becomes more malleable. But all the ego is the sense of I. The sense of I that has gotten identified with the physical form, with the body and beliefs and all that sort of stuff. So it's there whether the body is stimulated or not. As a matter of fact, as I was talking about, I think in the very beginning, there's a very subtle sense of existence that is there, that goes from lifetime to lifetime, that is not stimulated at all. It is simply a very subtle vibration, right, that wants to be somebody, and that will inevitably give rise to what we call the ego, okay? Which is a natural phenomenon, right? It's only a problem when the true I, the consciousness that is of which the body is the manifestation and the vehicle for expression, when that I identifies itself as the body, now the ego gets a solidity, a solidity that it didn't have before. Otherwise, you notice that the ego isn't stable. It's changing all the time. I'm this way, and I'm this way. But there's this idea that I am somebody. Nobody can find that somebody. It's the moment you find it, it's something else, right? And it's fickle. It's totally unstable. That's its nature, and it's supposed to be. It's supposed to be just how we tend to respond in any given moment, right? If I think there's supposed to be something there that's solid, and I'm looking for it in this flux and this constantly changing flux, that's when the suffering emerges, and that insistence on the ego being something rather than just being this flow of thoughts and feelings, it is what we would really call the stuck ego, the unawakened ego. But it too doesn't really exist as a thing. It exists as a belief, as just a particular kind of flow of thoughts. And so, I didn't really hear this in context, so maybe Matt would say exactly the same thing I just said if it dug into it further. But just that statement taken all by itself, I would just add my 2 cents to it, which I just did. Your clarity is always on point. Oh, thank you, Jen. Thank you very much. Masquerade, do you have a tapping for coming out of freeze mode? I've got 2 videos that I did, within the last 2 years. Yeah. Called tapping I'm not safe, and tapping on I am safe, right? Because that's what the freeze mode is. It is the assumption of not being safe. The assumption I'm not safe is frozen. So it doesn't move, right? And it becomes embodied in life as I'm not safe. That's a truth, an objective, unchanging fact. It is not subjective, and it doesn't fluctuate with time. And it doesn't matter what's going on, I'm not safe. That's froze. That's where the frozenness, right? Not to be considered with to be confused with the Disney movie. I obviously have that. My granddaughter and I has me watching it all the time. So anyway, so anything that I've got about safety will do it. I've got a whole tapping on the fearless you, which delves a lot into fear and safety because they're hand in hand. And there isn't any course that I do where I do not deal with trauma and safety, because I can't. I can't do anything therapeutic without dealing with that. You simply can't. Right? And most of the people that I know, even those that are deeply into non-dual inquiry, need some of this, right? Because you can't use non-dual inquiry as an end run around that, because it'll just be very confusing, right? You'll have these huge insights and not understand why there's all this stuff going on. And so that's the particular path that I've come up with. So, Jennifer, yes, beautiful. Thank you. You're welcome. Mary Sykes, I love this about the heart. Yeah, I do too, because it's true. David and Elaine, wonderful intro, G. We'll need to listen to it again so we can completely understand and appreciate the rich insight and subtlety of your words. Beautiful satsang as usual. Deep thanks as always. Oh, thank you. Thank you, guys. I agree with you, David and Elaine. It is very subtle, and it catches me. I admit it. And we finally go, oh my God, look at that. There you are again. Damn. You just keep stepping back until it's totally empty. And don't be afraid of the emptiness. Even that there'll be because that's that very subtle vibration. I want to be somebody. The idea that of total emptiness. Another life, please. One more. I'll have another round. Facebook user, I'm late, but I'm here. We'll have to rewatch. It's okay. It's okay. Oh, hello, Patricia. Hello, Patricia. So amazing. Thank you, Baba. You're welcome, Jennifer. Mary loves Mary. David Elaine. Great satsang, says John. Great satsang, Mary. Jay, Hariom, G, and everyone. Really late today, but I'm going to catch the replay later. I wanted to ask about the constricted feelings you have when attention is brought back to awareness. In your case, Jay, because I do know you, don't analyze them. Just don't pay them any attention. Oh, there's constricted feelings there. Give them no meaning whatsoever, right? Just turn away. That isn't an ignoring or a suppressing. Let them be there, right? But attach absolutely no meaning to them. Right? Give them no reason for being. It's just a vibration that's here, nothing more. That should be adequate for you. Ava, I subscribe to David and Elaine and Mary Sykes. This is again, this satsang intro. Thanks for that, Chi. And for today's satsang, as always, beautiful time. Well, I guess I will take that beginning part and chop it out and make it into its own video. That's great. Thank you. Obviously, that meant a lot. Namaste, Babaji, and beautiful beings. Jay, am I forcing the mind to quiet down, or is it just a habit that is seeing the end of its days from the practice of centering attention? Yes, it's a habit. It's something that's still getting your attention because you still think it's important. That's how it's doing it. See how subtle it is? It's clever. Clever little bugger, right? It's like, oh yeah, okay, what's still there? What do I need to? Nothing. Do nothing. Just go, oh, it's there. Give it nothing, right? I love you, Jay. Thank you. Brent, the Inner Reconciliation Courses is one of GP's greatest hits. It should not be slept on. Thanks, Brent. Yeah, I think it does bring balance to all sorts of things. It really does bring balance to all sorts of things. And what can I say? It does need people tell me it doesn't, that it's still relevant. I look at it and go, oh God, I feel so embarrassed. The quality of the production, my hair, everything. Oh dear. Yeah. It even started when I was living in a temporary place in San Francisco. I just come back from Germany and from India. Yeah. It finally happened. Anyway, enough said about that. You just go to my website. There's a whole section about it. So, hello, Anatella. Antonella from Italy. Good to see you. Jay laughs. Thank you. You're welcome. All right. God, the time flies. The time flies in satsang. My very favorite time of all. I'm as grateful for you as I hope you are for me. Because I get to do the thing that I love most. And again, I have to be aware of that subtle sense of identity that wants to creep up. And I go, oh, I am this. It's just a happening. It's just a happening. There is no teacher. Teaching is happening. That's it. There's no guru. Guruing is happening. That's it. There's nobody doing anything. Right? It is all just this wonderful, beautiful, spontaneous happening. That wonderful, spontaneous happening is what you call your life. It's what you call the name. But your life is simply the appearance of the experience that you, the self, are having, and you're not causing it. It's not a cause and effect thing. It's a spontaneous arising, like the film passing in the projector. There's no active will. There's not a somebody doing something. There's only the reality of you, the self, the true somebody that is experiencing itself as this, as GP or Brent or Jay or Jennifer, or any put your name. That's the name given to the movie. Right? It's not you. And when you see that, you see, oh, it's just a reflection of me. This is how I see myself. Because in my emptiness, I can't see myself. How do I see myself? I look in the mirror. The mirror is what you call your life. And your individual life is just a pinpoint of perception. It is the perception of the infinitude of that emptiness of and pure potential. So your life has meaning, it has value, it has purpose. But what that purpose is that it is through your life that you actually get to experience the wonder of you. That the self, the God, the true beingness gets the experiences the oneness of you. And on that note, I'm just going to let it go for today. I love you all. Favorite grandpa. I love you all. Namaste.